Hello, friends. On this glorious day in drink history, we're going to talk about kegs. Many who tune into this fine broadcast are bartenders, so kegs are a common part of everyday business, and we typically think of beer. But ladies and gentlemen, the world of kegs is expanding rapidly to include wine and cocktails. And on this episode of the Educational Drinking Show, I interview kegging pioneer Jordan Kivelstadt of Free Flow Wines to get his perspective on the keg landscape and how it impacts bartenders. Let's do this. This episode of the Educational Drinking Show is sponsored by Junipero Gin, which is the original American craft gin going back to 1996 and the pioneering work of Fritz Maytag, which also makes it the gin of San Francisco. At 98.6 proof, it's a bit stronger than most gins and perfect in your favorite gin cocktail. Good stuff. And with that, I'm pleased to share with you my interview with Jordan Kivelstadt.
Well, kegs have been around, but not even the kegs you know today have been around for forever. The kegs we all think of as kegs have only been around since the 60s. But
really?
Yeah. They used to have these old things called Golden Gate kegs. Have you ever seen them? They're big and they're round. They look like a barrel, and they've got a bung in them. They're bung kegs. That's what they used, seriously, until the 1960s, where the current keg that we all think of came from.
Really?
Yeah. Now, that has nothing to do with why I do kegs or anything. That is a completely useless history lesson, but I hope everyone enjoyed it.
I'm fascinated.
I can tell. Actually, there is a funny story with it. When Anheuser-Busch converted to the modern keg, they had 2 million of these old bung kegs, and they didn't know what to do with them. So they decided to enter the wine business. And in 1979, they launched Master Cellars, and they put really crappy Central Valley wine into these, Chablis and Hardy Burgundy, and tried to sell them to restaurants. They're like, oh, you got Bud Light and Hardy Burgundy and Chablis, woohoo. Didn't go very well. And 5 years later, they shut it down. But that's the predecessor to modern wine on tap today, which is what we do, and we bring awesome premium wines to people in kegs.
So tell me a little bit more about Free Flow Wines and how it came to be and where you're at with it today.
So a couple of years ago, 7 if you want to count, which seems like a really long time now, we came up with this idea. There's a better way to serve wine by the glass. You don't have to deal with bottles and capsules and corks. So from a sustainability perspective, it's huge. And then we can deliver a fresher glass of wine every time. So we said, let's try it. We started with a brand called SilverTap. We did that for about 3 years, built the marketplace, and then we started doing it for other wineries. And today we have over 250 wine brands that we work with and over 400 products in the marketing keg. All premium, great brands that you know and a lot that you don't.
Why is Free Flow relevant to bartenders?
Well, that's a great question. And I think we all know in bars, wine is always an afterthought. And it's really unfortunate because you actually pour a lot of wine. You talk to most bartenders, they still go through a fair amount of wine. And they're serving the house wine that's been on the back bar, that's warm and stale. And look, you want to give your customers a great experience every time. And even if they're not having a cocktail, you still should give them a great glass of wine. So if instead of finding a bottle and opening it, you could just pull a tap handle and out comes perfect temperature, perfect flavored wine, you get a better customer, more tips.
So is there any quality drop off in going keg versus bottle?
Just the opposite, actually, right? You're going to get quality preservation. Because the idea is oxygen is wine's biggest enemy. Mm-hmm. If you can take away oxygen, wine never goes bad. It's perfect every time.
Wow. And I have to think that...
I like that. I need a wow every time.
I know, right? That this is a bit more efficient for bartenders to serve wine in terms of time.
Well, I mean, it's a busy Friday night. You don't want to sit there opening bottles, throwing out bottles. You get 120 glasses per keg. You just never stop.
Yeah. And it can come out chilled, obviously, like a beer.
Yeah, it's going to come out similar to a beer. Wine tap systems look like draft beer systems. Mm-hmm. A couple different parts, higher grade stainless steel. We push with a blend of nitrogen and CO2 instead of with argon, or as many people think, or straight CO2 like beer. But yeah, it's going to come out at 45 degrees for your white wines and 58, 60 degrees for your red wines.
So if a bar out there is interested in switching to wine out of keg, is it a big kind of logistical switch in terms of equipment and whatnot?
Nah, it's pretty easy. You can check out trywineontap.com. It's a great resource just for information on wine on tap, and reach out to your local draft company. And if you don't know who they are, we have a list of them on Try Wine on Tap, but you can also call us. We're happy to help. 855 keg wine. Seriously, I love that one.
That's an amazing number that you guys went to that length to get the number. I want my number to be like that.
855 call Alan.
Yeah, or like 855 Crofttown.
Crofttown. I
Yeah.
like that. You might actually be able to get that one.
I hope it's not taken.
What you should just do is find Croft and just and then work around that. Like get those 5 digits and then figure out what you can do with around there.
Except no one can spell it, so it'd be a terrible phone number. You mentioned earlier sustainability. Sustainability is such, a trendy talking point. Do you have any kind of statistics, or is it really making a dent in terms of sustainability?
No, we make it all up. There's nothing we do. It's just a buzzword.
Yeah?
No, I kid. The reality is 61% of the carbon footprint of the wine industry comes from packaging. Glass bottles are the biggest chunk of that. So if we can reduce that, our company so far has taken over 12 million pounds of trash out of landfills.
Wow.
Yeah, just think about that. That is football fields full of glass. And it's growing every month because as we keep growing, it's like a snowball effect, right?
Wow.
And that's really, really cool. Over the life of a keg, one single keg, it's like taking a car off the road for 2.5 years. Every keg is like one car off the road for 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a 96% reduction in carbon footprint.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do certain styles of wine do better in keg, as in like rosé, sparkling, red, white?
Yeah, I mean, definitely your age-worthy red wines are not good for keg, right? So something that needs a year or 2 or 3 in the bottle before it tastes great is not ideal for keg. But most wines are designed to be consumed quickly. So your whites, your rosés, and then most of your red wines are still designed to be drank quickly, not really designed to age. And there's a price ceiling too. Most people don't want, a $40 glass of wine.
Is there a cost benefit for bars switching over to wine on a keg?
The biggest one is loss and spoilage. So most restaurants and bars see an 8 to 15% loss and spoilage rate. That bottle that's sitting on the back bar that's been open for a day and it doesn't taste very good anymore. So that's the biggest cost savings. You will see about 1 to 4 cents an ounce in actual just literal savings like bottle versus keg. But again, that's a smaller number by comparison to the waste and spoilage issue.
And where is the industry at in terms of embracing wine out of keg? How many bars are using it in restaurants and so forth?
So we estimate, we're a packaging and logistics company. We're the cheerleaders of the wine on tap category, but we don't sell wine. So we don't see it. But we estimate about 6,000 accounts around the country right now.
Really?
Yeah. And last year, just to give you a size, scope, perspective, it was about 14 million glasses of wine were consumed out of taps.
And is this getting out of cities at all?
Yeah, that's actually been the coolest part, is our fastest growing markets aren't the coasts anymore. Ohio, Missouri, places like that are just exploding right now. But here's what's cool. The Epicurean scene in the U.S. is changing too. You have all these top chefs and bartenders from places like New York and L.A. and San Francisco who are trying to open restaurants, and they're like, I can't afford it in New York, but I'm from Cincinnati. I can go and open a New York-style bar in Cincinnati, and I'm going to be one of 1 or 2 as opposed to one of 100. And so through that migration and change in the way we eat and drink outside of the major metropolitan areas is driving wine on tap, is driving the craft cocktail movement. It's all connected.
And what about the logistics of actually getting the kegs delivered and returning kegs and so on and so forth?
Well, that's the magic of what we've created. We work through the 3-tier system. So you order your kegs just like you do your bottles from your local wholesaler. But we've managed all the logistics nationally to actually bring them all home. So we have 120,000 kegs in our fleet that are moving all over the U.S.
Yeah, you do.
It's crazy. Just like sometimes I have to go to sleep and close my eyes and be like, that's insane. That's only like 6 more mortgages.
Wow.
So it's been really cool to see it grow, and it's taken a tremendous amount of work from our team, but we're finally there. We're like through the valley, climbing up the other side, which is pretty exciting.
What does the future of wine out of keg look like in your estimation?
We're hoping in 10 years it's 10% of the overall market, which is about 6 million cases of wine a year, or about 3 million kegs.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of wine.
And
we're only at about 0.7% of the market today. So there's still a lot of ceiling. I mean, the 14 million glasses is less than 1% of the market.
Wow, and it's continuing to grow?
About 70% a year.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been really cool to see. And we're opening a facility in New Jersey in July, and we're expanding our footprint and our customer base and just all across the board. It's been very, very cool to see the whole thing grow.
And cocktails out of keg has become something that you're seeing in bars more and more. Can you talk to me about that?
So that's a really interesting one. In Prohibition, they limited the size post-Prohibition. In Prohibition, they limited the size to 0. Post-Prohibition, they limited the size of high-proof alcohol to 1.75 liters, as I'm sure you know. So you can't do cocktails in the keg, from the factory. We can't produce it. What you can do is batch cocktails on site, and we're seeing a lot of that. We actually own a draft service and installation company here in California, where we're installing draft beer, wine, cocktail lines all the time, cold brew on tap too, and we're seeing craft cocktails grow exponentially. 1 or 2 house batch cocktails, they tend to work better for your simpler cocktails. The more complex, you start adding fruit juices and other things in, it just creates gook. But for like a Manhattan or a Negroni, things that are a couple of things mixed together where you can splash on something right at the end, those do really, really well. The issue is separation.
Yeah.
So there are some really cool technologies coming out right now that mix inside of the canister or keg in order to keep your cocktail fresh. And you don't have to worry about oxidation the same way. So it works pretty well.
So bars can work with you to develop in-house kegging programs for their own batch cocktails?
In Northern California, yes. Outside of Northern California, no.
Oh, okay.
So, but we're always happy to talk about it. We loved Craft Draft, just the idea of great products on tap. So we're happy to integrate that into the broader conversation.
What else besides cocktails and wine is finding its way into kegs?
I think the biggest thing I'm seeing outside of that is cold brew coffee.
Yeah.
Have you had cold brew?
I love it.
Yeah, you and me both. This is because you and I don't sleep.
It's an addiction.
So it's like this is totally inappropriate.
It's too easy.
But it's like going from like smoking weed to doing heroin. I mean, you've got 3 times the caffeine per liquid ounce. So you've just taken it up a whole other level. We have it on tap in our office, and I swear productivity goes down 30% when that keg runs dry.
It's you just pour it, It's so easy to just
And
have
it tastes so good.
Yeah, and because it's cold, I want a pint.
So have you seen the ones that are actually nitrogenated like a Guinness? They actually like bubble like a Guinness. It's the coolest thing in the world.
Explain that concept to me.
So they infuse the coffee with nitrogen because like Guinness gets its mouthfeel from the nitrogen bubbles in it, right? So they do the same thing with cold brewed coffee, and it literally looks like a Guinness while you're pouring it. When you drink it, it's just this like rich coffee like velvet on your tongue. It's so good.
Wow.
Yeah. So cold brew is cool.
I want some right now.
I know, doesn't that just like
So
the two of us are
refreshing.
sitting here like. And then kombucha, seeing a lot of kombucha on keg.
Really?
Yeah, you're starting to see it's a great alternative. This is another thing for bartenders, think about our bar owners. Is it's a great alternative for the non-alcoholic drinker, right? Who still would like to have something yummy, flavorful, carbonated, and they don't want non-alcoholic beer. And so kombucha on tap is a great alternative for them. We're seeing restaurants start messing around with that as a non-alcoholic alternative for the adult beverage drinker.
Yeah, I have to think also like, artisanal ginger beers and things of that nature.
And you're seeing that as well. So now you're starting to see some of these higher end sodas, craft sodas, start to come into keg as well. Look, if we can reduce packaging in any marketplace, it's a good thing, right? And if we can deliver a fresher product, it's a good thing. So there's a cool company out of New York called Joyride. And it's
a great name.
It is a great name. And Joyride is basically pioneering craft beverage on tap. So they go in and work with on-premise operators, but mostly actually office buildings. And they'll put coffee and tea and kombucha and whatever on tap in your office and supply it all for you. It's a brilliant slug to productivity.
How did you get into this whole kegging game?
Really, really bad decision.
Really? What inspired it?
I had a bad bottling day. So for those that don't know me, I was a winemaker before starting Free Flow, and bottling is a miserable process. I'm sure you've seen it. It's not fun, no matter what you're bottling. And so I just had a bad bottling day, and I came into the winery, and I kicked one of my topping kegs. For those of you that don't know, we keep all the extra wine that doesn't fill a barrel in kegs. So if you go into any winery anywhere in the world, you'll see kegs. And so I was like, well, can't we just sell wine in one of these? And that's where the idea came from.
Really? And how did you get started?
I met my now business partner, friend of mine, and we hashed it over a couple cocktails. And next thing you know, we started a little company, and we're filling some wine with kegs. And we had 2 accounts in San Francisco, Out the Door and Annabelle's Bistro.
Wow.
First 2 accounts that I'm aware of. Actually, that's not true. One predates them in Atlanta, Georgia, called Two Urban Licks.
Okay.
He was way ahead of the bell curve. But then, we had the first 2 that were kind of test subjects for Wine on Tap.
Man, and you guys, where are you based?
Napa.
It's a good place for wine.
It is a good place for wine. It's a good place to live, too.
It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, I like it up there. I just, moved from San Francisco about 10 months ago, and live in Sonoma now, and different pace of life.
Mm-hmm.
But, I got one of those little ones. They tend to change the pace of life, and I have to admit, not driving 2 hours a day commuting is a wonderful and glorious thing.
I imagine that it is. And today we find ourselves in Las Vegas.
Oh, is that where we are?
We are.
Oh. Yeah, what you can't see, viewers, is that we are in a hotel room
We
having this
are.
very cool conversation.
Yeah, here at Caesars at WSWA. How do you describe WSWA to someone who hasn't been before?
Huh. That's a great question. Just imagine the entire alcohol industry. Imagine every executive of the entire alcohol industry going around and having 15-minute meetings nonstop for 12 hours a day with basically just like match every supplier with every one of their wholesalers. You got 50 states, you've got 380 wholesalers, and what you're trying to do is get all of those people to interact in 15-minute increments. It is a death march, and it's a very funny one, but it is a great place to be to see people. The entire industry comes to connect and interact, and generally you can actually make a really good time of it.
And we play craps.
And we play craps.
We play a lot of craps.
Yeah, I love craps.
I know. We didn't get to this time, though.
I let you down. That was entirely my fault.
Well, it gives us something to look forward to next time.
2 years.
2 years, that's right, because it's in Orlando.
We got to go to Orlando next year.
No good.
I like Orlando.
No, you don't.
No, I don't. I mean, I like WSWA in Orlando. I'm not sure I'm not going to say anything. My mother told me if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So Florida is Florida.
The only experience I have with Orlando is seeing it on Cops. They film a lot of episodes in Orlando.
Why do you think that is?
Just vibrant people. I don't know. I really don't.
Energetic people. That's
Energetic
a very
people.
politically correct answer. I do actually I have to admit, as much as I want to give Florida a little bit a flack for all of this, Florida's a very good state for me because
you guys made some big things happen
we
there.
did. We actually changed some legislation in Florida to allow for wine on tap.
How does that happen? Tell me that story.
That's going to take a lot of drinks and a long time, but I'll give you the executive summary.
Yeah.
Essentially, post-prohibition again, they limited alcohol to 1 gallon. Couldn't buy not alcohol, wine to anything larger than 1 gallon. Totally arbitrary. So we came in and said, well, let's make it 6 gallons because our kegs are 5 and that'll work. So that ran into some headwind. You got to remember this law's been on the books since prohibition. It's never been changed, even though it's been tried something like 45 times. So we ran into some opposition from our friends here at WSWA, and we worked through it with them. And over the course of 9 months, we crafted the language to work for all parties involved. And through some back and forth, we ended up getting 1 gallon or 5.16 gallon reusable container, aka the free flow keg.
Wow.
So I literally have the law written, the law on my wall in my office. It's pretty cool. It was a truly interesting experience to go through lobbying and actually watch the wheels of government turn.
Mm-hmm.
And Florida is a unique place to do it. So
Yeah.
it was all around one of those just experiences that I hope I never have again, but was really, really amazing to go through.
And are kegs being embraced in Florida now?
Yeah, it's our 4th largest market in the country.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been huge. Disney's been a huge advocate. We're in a number of Ritz-Carltons all over Florida, and then a lot of restaurateurs. Look, it makes so much sense for restaurateurs. They're really the big winners in this entire supply chain. So
Wow.
they've really embraced it with open arms.
And your kegs are a little bit different than traditional beer kegs, yeah?
No, they're the same, like literally identical.
But I thought they were smaller.
Well, they're not the big like 15-gallon party keg.
Yeah.
But when you buy like a keg for your house of your favorite craft beer, that's come in the 5-gallon torpedo.
Yeah.
We're exactly the same.
Has anyone done a keg stand?
Yes.
Really? Was that like the first thing?
Yeah, I did a keg stand of Sauvignon Blanc. Don't ever do a keg stand of Sauvignon Blanc. A cold, highly acidic wine is just not awesome. It didn't go well. It burned. a lot.
Maybe you just did it wrong. You think of that?
You're welcome to come up and try it again. I will challenge you to a keg stand, Alan. Come on, bring it on.
And what's next for you?
We've got a facility opening in New Jersey in July. We're actually partnering up with one of the leading brands that was around the same time we were, called Gotham Project, and we're opening a facility in Bayonne, New Jersey, which
Wow.
we're really excited about. Anyone who is listening, ever been to Bayonne? If you haven't, you can hop on the light rail, come right on over and check it out. We'll have a bar there. Not a public bar, but a tasting bar. And it'll be cool. It'll give us a footprint on the East Coast. That's really been our weakest region.
Mm-hmm.
So to have a home base there and really get to, work the market out there and help develop Wine on Tap in New England, kind of the Mid-Atlantic, will be great.
Mm-hmm. I have to think it's going to help the sustainability even more.
Yeah, well, that's the cool part is I don't have to deadhead a keg back. So if I fill a keg with California Cabernet and send it to Connecticut, I can take the empty keg back to New Jersey, fill it with Cote d'Aron, and send it to Colorado, then bring it back to California. So it saves us a big leg of return logistics and obviously then has a big environmental impact.
Outstanding. Well, congratulations on all your
Thank you,
success
sir.
in such an ambitious endeavor. It's so cool to see you trudging along, fighting the good fight.
We fight the good fight every day, and everyone who's out there drinking a glass of wine on tap, thank you.
Yeah, and I hope bartenders were able to take something away from this and really consider, bringing kegged wine into their bar. And what's the next step for people if they are interested in learning more?
I think really the best thing to do is either go to trywineontap.com or give us a ring at 855-KEG-WINE. And we will, there's that number again. But look, we're here to help no matter where you are in the country and move this project along. So, we're the biggest advocates for the category. Our job is to help people who are interested start getting flowing.
And can you do sparkling wine?
Yes-ish. Full sparkling wine is very challenging. I mean, everyone's seen draft beer, right? It sometimes foams, it sometimes doesn't. So, and that's a quarter of the carbonation of full sparkling. So we can get into the keg sparkling. Dispensing it's a little more challenging. So most of what we do with quote unquote sparkling wine is more like frizzante, and that tends to work for bars doing mimosas or where you're doing an inexpensive glass of sparkling, and therefore it's always sparkling.
And what about like vermouth and fortified wine?
We do two vermouths with our buddy Duggan, and we've seen more of those. I was just mentioning we just launched a new sangria in keg that we're really excited about. It's a sangria concentrate because it's designed to get poured over ice, and it's delicious. I actually was drinking some right before I walked in here.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah, can't you tell? It was loosening me up for the interview. No, but it's a really, I think there's an opportunity to go well beyond just still wine, but we want to do it right and, again, adhere to the premium aspect of what we do. It's about high-quality products.
Outstanding. Well, best of luck to you. And
thank you, sir.
I'm sure we'll cross paths again, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Happy to do it.
There it is, Pineapple King.